Welcome to Conversations with Dr. Skip Mason,
pastor, preacher, historian, author,
teacher, librarian, archivist, world traveler,
collector, family historian, avid reader, and creator of the popular Vanishing Black Atlanta Facebook page.
But a lot of folks who love history.
Most importantly, he's our dad, who loves his family and who taught us the importance of our history and having important conversations.
Join him now for this episode of Conversations with Dr. Skip.
Well, good Sunday afternoon, my brothers and my sisters beloved across our wonderful Zion. I am Skip Mason, and I'm delighted to welcome you to an afternoon conversation with the family of Bishop Joseph C. Coles Jr. I got to say I am Skip Mason, pastor of the West Mitchell Street CME Church in the heart of downtown Atlanta. It is such a joy to have you here with us on this Sunday afternoon, beautiful Sunday afternoon, after such a tumultuous week of activities taking place across our country. That circus and carnival up in Washington, D.C. this week, the unfortunate and tragic shooting of the young man Jasper Blake in the back, the commemoration and celebration of so many observances on August the 28th, including the March on Washington and Emmett Till's the anniversary of Emmett Till's death, the anniversary of Barack Obama accepting the nomination for the presidency. And then, of course, on that Friday evening, we learned that a beloved and cherished actor, Chadwick Boseman, went on to glory to be with the ancestors. And so it has been quite a week. And I'm just delighted that you all are here to share with us today as we talk about one of our most cherished and celebrated bishops. I'm going to ask if you would to host a watch party and to share it with others. And I'm trying to find it on my homepage. As I tell people, not only am I the host of the show, I'm the producer, the director, and the technician. And I also run and I'm the coffee boy, a tea boy as well. So I do all of these things going on at the very same time. Just a couple of quick acknowledgments and announcements before we begin our wonderful interview with the triumphant trio. That's what I'm calling them, the Coles children. But let me acknowledge Senior Bishop Lawrence Reddick and Sister Wendy Jones Reddick, our First Lady, and the College of Bishops for your continued support and encouragement. I appreciate it tremendously. Bishop James B. Walker and Bishop Thomas L. Brown, my Brown, and Mrs. Walker and Dr. Louise Baker Brown, also for your continued support. And the ever wonderful Dr. Teresa Duhart, who makes things happen in terms of technology in our church. And she asked me to remind you all that this coming Friday, September the 4th, is the General Connectional Board meeting. And the registration deadline is on tomorrow. And so you need to go to www.thecmechurch.org to register for the General Connectional Board meeting. Everyone must register. And so I'm going to run this down on the bottom for those who are joining us and tuning in so that you can remember to register to vote. This day, however, I have the joy and pleasure to share with the Coles family. The Cummings family will be on next Sunday. So I have a wonderful hour to share, and we might go over just a little, just depends on how much they want to chat today about their beloved dad and mother. So let me bring them up. I guess I'm going to bring them up in the order that they were born. Sister Ruby Coles, Sister Jocelyn Coles Wheaton, and the baby of the family, Brother Joseph Cole. Well, hello, the Coles children. How are you?
Good.
Hey, Pastor.
We're good. Thank you.
What a joy to have you all. And before we begin, I got to shout out, and I know you all are going to talk about the special relationship that you all have. Sister Joy Jackson, I reached out to in order to get the numbers and to make contact, and Sister Nellie Williams as well. But Sister Jackson has been under the weather, and we pray God's healing on her, and thank God for her wonderful life and all of her wonderful children who are like sisters and brothers to me. But I am so glad to have you here today to talk about the 37th Bishop of our church, Bishop Joseph Carlisle Cole. And I'll tell you, Bishop Cole was really, I knew of Bishop Shine. I got to know Bishop Shine, but growing up, Bishop Coles was really one of the first bishops that I got to observe. And it seems like whenever Bishop Coles came to West Side, it seemed like the preacher preached harder, and everybody was all up in Bishop Coles' face. And Mrs. Cole, I used to serve on the usher board. And I remember many times them coming in to the church and gracing us with their presence and all. So it is just a joy. I'm gonna put this picture up just to start off with. But this is our beloved Bishop and Mrs. Cole. And so we want to start, and I want to make sure, can everybody hear me? Ruby, can you hear me okay?
I don't.
Ruby, okay. Ruby?
I don't think she can hear.
Oh, that's okay. Well, we've been having a little technical difficulties, and so Ruby may have to come out and come back in. We're going to go ahead, and we know Ruby's going to work it out. And Lord, we just ask that you would clear the airways.
Yes.
And so that the technology can work for Sister Ruby. But let's talk about your dad. Let's start. I'm going to put this picture up first. And I also want to say, when I asked for pictures, amen, the Cole family they know how to send some pictures. Lord, I got more pictures, and I got one or two of them. I'm going to snatch from them and use in my book with their permission, of course.
Yes.
And I know Joe Gilmore is going to talk about me, but I'm so excited about doing this book on the quotes of wisdom from our bishop. But I want you to first, this is how we knew him, our great bishop.
Yes.
Amen. But he wasn't always a bishop. He was born. He was a little baby. Let me bring Ruby back up into the midst. Ruby, you back on.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Sister Ruby. Don't you go anywhere, and don't you touch
I did not touch anything.
As the oldest child. But let's talk about your dad. And what do you know about his birth, childhood? Where was he born? Where did he grow up? Just and you all can just go at random. If I know the culture, you already got it organized as to who gonna talk about what. Amen. Y'all, I they are very well organized. I guess that's what their mother and father taught them. But let's talk about Bishop Cole and tell us what you know about your dad as a little baby boy growing up in Washington, D.C.
So I'll get started. He was born in D.C. in 1926 to Ruby Banks Coles and Joseph Coles Sr. That's his mom. His mom was locally known as a singer, and she was invited to lots of churches, CME and otherwise in the city to sing solos at various programs. Their home church was St. John's CME Church on Stanton Road in Southeast Washington, and he really, really loved St. John's, and St. John's loved him back.
Yes.
Yeah. There's a stained glass window of his image and also Bishop Broomfield's image at St. John's that we're very proud of. He went to Dunbar High School, which is very well known as what was one of the best high schools for colored people back then. And he went on to Howard University here in DC, where he got his Bachelor's of Arts in Political Science and his Bachelor of Divinity from the School of Divinity. Yeah. But he knew early on that he received the call. He got his local preacher's license when he was only 19 years old. And he was assigned to be the youth pastor at Israel Metropolitan CME Church.
Which is what this picture is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he was there for a few years. And I just say, yeah, that's his license he received in 1945.
Wow.
When he was only 19 years old. So he began his pastorate quite young.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
Yeah.
And did you all know his mother? Did you get to know your grandmother?
No, unfortunately, she died 3 months before my parents got married.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But he told her before she died, he knew he was getting married.
Okay.
And he told her that he would name his first daughter after her, and that's why I'm Ruby Cole.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. What an honor, I tell you. And growing up in DC, the chocolate city during that era where the history of Black folks was so rich, it was just so rich. And he went to Dunbar High School, named for Paul Laurence Dunbar. He went to Howard University. Let's talk about, did he ever talk about his days at Howard, and what that experience was like for him?
Yeah, that's his senior photo, which actually looks remarkably like Joseph IV.
Yes, just like his
but his biggest influence when he was at Howard was learning the theology of Howard Thurman.
Okay.
That was Howard Thurman was the biggest influence. He said that at Howard he learned that it was okay to question things, to question God, to do the hard work to build your faith. So he loved Howard. It was a really positive experience that he feels like really prepared him for the pastorate.
Oh, wow. That's great. That is great. So, looking at this, he was look at the characteristics. A lot of us go to school and, some might say, the class clown, the cut up, he was a deep thinker, and that's incredible. I don't know how much deep thinking I did in college. I did enough thinking.
I did not inherit that at all, Pastor. Not even.
Neither did I.
That's not part of his legacy.
I don't know how deep I was, but that's a remarkable accomplishment. And he was a political science major. Now, was he named for his? Well, obviously.
Yeah,
Carlisle Coles. Okay.
Right.
All right.
And Joseph Carlisle Coles Sr. was also a CME. He was a graduate of Payne College.
Oh, wow.
He grew up at Ebenezer CME Church in South Boston, where his parents, John and Jenny Coles, were members. And back then, schools for colored kids were located in churches.
That's right.
And so our grandfather actually learned to read in Ebenezer.
At the CME Church there, yeah.
Oh, wow, that's great. That is great. So now, where did your mom come in? Is it time to ease your mom in right now? Had he gone to seminary before he met your mom? When does the beautiful, vivacious Janine Coles come in?
Yeah. You want me to keep going, or you all want to talk about it? There she is.
Yeah. My goodness.
So he was appointed to Ebenezer CME Church in South Boston, Virginia, and there he ran into the Hamilton family.
Okay.
And our grandfather, William and Mary Hamilton, had 11 children.
Wow.
And so
4 girls.
Yeah, 4 girls, 7 boys.
Wow.
And the story goes that, he was introduced to a daughter and ended up dating. And my mother, Geneva, was the 11th of the bunch.
Oh,
and
wow.
one of the jokes, and my father had a couple of standby jokes that he would tell time after time after time after time. But one of the jokes that he would often tell is that he married the runt of the family. But anyway, yes, he met
Brother Joe. This is not a runt under no. I'm sorry.
But yeah,
I'm sorry.
He knew that.
He definitely married up, as they say.
Yeah.
But yes, so he met Geneva at his there, and yes, and that's their reception photo.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, walk us through, if you can, the early years of their marriage and ministry. You know, where were they located at this time, and what was your mother doing as well? What was her, profession, schooling, the whole 9 yards? Any one of you?
So soon after they got married, they moved to Cleveland, and where he pastored at Lane Metropolitan CME. They started a social ministry there.
Okay.
And they, because they were young adults, they started a young adult ministry there, and he just started to blossom as a minister.
Yeah.
And my mom, she soon after they moved to Lane, then she had Ruby. And she started just building the home and being part of the ministry there at Lane Metropolitan.
Wow. Now, did your mom, did she ever talk about marrying a pastor? Was that wasn't one of her goals? And she fell in love, obviously.
No, she was. Just a quick funny story. Some years ago, I ran into someone whose mom was also from South Boston.
Okay.
And we started talking, and I mentioned Ebenezer, and she said, "My mom went to Ebenezer." And so the next day I saw her, and she said, I called my mom last night, and she remembers Geneva. She said that they used to sing in the choir together and make fun of the pastor. I said, yeah, I think she married him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That is something.
One interesting thing, real fast about South Boston, though, you might be, as a historian, you'd be interested. Bishop Bell actually lived across the street from Ebenezer. And so while my father was a pastor at Ebenezer, Bishop Bell became his primary mentor. So, I think we all grew up hearing stories about Bishop Bell. So just in the context of the CME Church and the history.
And our family was very close to his family. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's good. And he just had a grandson. I think it was his grandson that passed. He was a scientist, a doctor.
Wow.
In doing my research and trying to find descendants of Bishop Bell. But Bishop Bell, and I am going to find a photo of him, was one of the great scholars of the CME Church. One of the most brilliant minds. And I think, and I should know, and I probably have to check Bishop Lake's book, but I think he went to Lane, but I think he also went to Harvard as well. Just one of the brilliant minds of our church, and so one of the understated persons, bishops that we don't know a whole lot about. Yeah, William Yancey.
Yeah,
that's right, the 20th bishop of the church. And just a tremendous. No, he went to Yale. I'm sorry, he went to Yale Divinity School, not Harvard, and earned his PhD there in 1924. So what a great mentor your dad had, and boy, I know that would have been a great conversation, to hear about the both of them together with your dad's scholarship and academic prowess and Bishop Bell. But that is wonderful to hear. Now, I want you all shared a couple of pictures, and I don't know, they're very young pictures, I believe, of your dad and Bishop well, he was a Bishop Bass then.
Richard Bass, yeah.
Richard Bass.
Yes.
Yeah.
Richard Oliver Bass. They obviously have been friends for a long time, huh?
Oh
yeah.
Long, since the
Tell us about their
1940s.
friendship since the 1940s. Wow.
Yeah.
And they would laugh
Yes, goodness.
together.
Yep. And that's Bishop. That was Bishop Lindsay. But yeah, Bishop. Our father always talked about Richard Bass and Bishop Lindsay. They met I believe at a National Youth Conference, as I recall.
Yeah.
And they stayed good friends after that.
Wow. Calling Dr. Claude Bass. You need to see these photos of your dad, and Bishop Cole and Bishop Lindsay. Claude normally watches the show on Sunday unless he preaches so hard he has to take a nap. I don't know what kind of preaching he did today, but at any rate, Claude, we want you to see these pictures. But that's remarkable, these friendships and relationships that develop. So now your dad is married, starting the family. Let me put this beautiful picture. I'm sorry, Brother Joe, you were on the way, but not here.
Yeah, they were thinking about me, but I wasn't there yet. Right.
Yeah, not there. What a beautiful picture.
That was in 1962. So Jocelyn and I were Lane Metropolitan babies.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And for historical context, 1962 was the year I was born. Just for historical. Well, and then of course we got the show.
Here we go.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's in New York. Yeah.
Oh, so tell us what it was like growing up as PKs. You know, I mean, were you all the proverbial preacher's kids? Well-mannered, obedient, respectful, didn't run in church, didn't play, all of that kind of stuff. So give us the real deal about being children of Bishop, then Pastor and Mrs. Geneva Cole before he became the bishop.
Well, I can remember several very well-placed elbows to my ribs.
Yes, you're in church.
In church.
Yeah.
Because
a few twists on the side. Yeah, during church. Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt a knot in my thigh from my mother twist. Yeah. Just behave, kind of make sure you're behaving. Yes.
Yeah.
I got some of those.
Yeah, we were typical kids. Sitting still was not what we did.
Yeah. And that's the way it should have been.
We had a great childhood. I mean, as kids, we played outside. We had friends over. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's our father playing football out in the yard.
Yeah. We just had a great childhood. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can tell because you see how the grass is all worn out.
We were always in the yard playing.
We were always out there, and he loved to get out there and play football with us, or baseball, hit the ball with bat and all. So yeah, we had a great time. I
think our house was always the Kool-Aid house, as they call it, right? The house where kids would come over.
Yeah, the gathering spot.
Yeah. My mother would give all the kids a snack, and we'd hang out, and it was all fun.
Yeah.
Yep. Ooh, there's the blackmail picture right there.
That is a blackmail picture.
Listen, Ruby was already woke. She had her. Jocelyn hadn't quite gotten there yet. She's still all turned up. Yeah. And Joseph, you were woke as well with that fro.
But it looked like that bow tie was going to attack me. That's the thing that scared me.
So tell us, walk us through geographically. So Ruby, you were born in Cleveland. Okay. I
was born in Cleveland.
So walk us through your travels following your dad from Cleveland to where before you ended up in Atlanta.
Right. So we were very lucky because unlike a lot of Methodist ministers, he's Bishop Costa, but he's just daddy to us.
Yeah, sure.
But daddy didn't have he didn't get moved a lot.
Okay.
So we were really fortunate that he was in at Lane Metropolitan from 1953 to 1963 for 10 years. And then he was at Williams Institutional from 1963 to 1974 when he was consecrated as bishop. So we were very fortunate in that we didn't have to move around. And so in 1974, when the family moved to Atlanta, I had just finished my freshman year at college.
Okay.
So, you know, I still identify more as being from New York, whereas Jocelyn and Joseph did their high school, Joseph did elementary school, and identify more as being from Atlanta.
Ah, I got you. I got you. Yes, indeed. So, Jocelyn, now, were you born in New York?
I was born in Cleveland.
I was born in Cleveland as well.
Yes, yes. But we moved to New York when I was, I think, like 1.5 or 2.
Okay.
So I don't remember Cleveland at all. Apparently in Cleveland, we lived in this huge house, this huge old rickety mansion. He wanted to fix up, and they made it the parsonage. When I left, they said that I was looking all over the house with my pacifier. So that makes me realize that I must have been really
Yeah. And so, Joseph, were you born in New York?
I was born in New York. I'm a Williams baby. Yes.
You were a native New Yorker.
I'm a native New Yorker, born in Williams Institution. Yes.
Well, tell us about Williams. Is one of the great historic churches that was in I don't know, during that time it was in the well, prior to that it was in the old theater.
Lafayette
Theater, one of the historic theaters that I think that's a historic fact that is generally overlooked, you know, that the CME Church acquired that building that had a lot of history. But tell us about growing up in New York. What was living in New York like for you all? Where did you all live? Did you live in Harlem or some other place? And what was it like growing up for you all there?
We lived in the Bronx.
Lived in the Bronx. Okay.
Lived in the Bronx. I remember the theater. I remember the church. You know, we moved when I was 8, so I don't have a lot of memories. What I remember, like they said, is playing in the yard, a bunch of friends, playing stickball. My father coming out and playing. My father loved baseball and football, so he would come out and swing the stick with us, and he wanted to, and he would say he was Willie Mays and that kind of silly stuff when he was playing stickball with us and wiffle ball and all that kind of thing. But it was a great childhood. That's what I remember about New York. He was pastoring a church in Harlem in the 60s.
Wow.
So there was, and I think Ruby may have sent an article about it. So he did obviously have some interaction with Malcolm X.
Yeah.
But he was, that's where he was in the heart of the civil rights movement, was right there in Harlem.
Yeah. And it's interesting because you all shared an interesting article. I think this is it, about this controversy in that Williams refused to house the funeral of Malcolm, but the church never received the invitation.
Yeah, and the thing about that was, and I was old enough to remember all of this. About 10 weeks before Malcolm was assassinated, my dad hosted a rally at Williams Institutional in December of 1964 for Fannie Lou Hamer and Malcolm X. So
and they were there,
So they were there. They held a rally at Williams Institutional just 10 weeks before Malcolm was assassinated.
Wow.
And, we don't have a photo from the rally, but if anybody has the book, Malcolm X Speaks, if you go to the speech from that day, the first thing he says is, "Thank you, Reverend Coles." And so, I mean, obviously, for him to let Malcolm X and Fannie Lou Hamer have a rally at the church said a lot about his commitment to social justice and to the civil rights movement. So it was very hurtful to him that this rumor was going around.
Sure.
That when you think about it, I mean, it would have been something had they had asked him, and if he had said yes, and if Malcolm X's funeral could have been held at Williams Institution.
Yeah.
So yeah, but he was really on the front lines of civil rights movement in Harlem in the 60s. And I want to just tell one really quick thing that I know my brother's going to be annoyed about. But if you know, the movie Harlem Nights is on all the time.
Okay.
And if you ever watch Harlem Nights, there is a scene where they show the Lafayette Theater.
Yes.
Right.
So
Right.
And so whenever I see that, I always go, "Oh, there's Williams." So
and nobody has seen Harlem Nights more times than Ruby Geneva Coles.
So the next time you all watch Harlem Nights, if you see the Lafayette Theater, you'll know that's Williams Institution.
Harlem Nights is one of my favorite movies. I also have the movie poster. And so I got 2 things I need to do this evening. Well, first of all, I gotta watch Black Panther again because they're showing it again. Yes. I gotta watch Lovecraft Country on HBO. I love that show. Then I gotta pull up Harlem Nights, and then while I'm watching Harlem Nights, I gotta
look for that scene.
Find a picture. I would hope somebody might have that picture that was taken of that meeting of Malcolm X and Fannie Lou Hamer. Got to dig deep. Have you all looked for it?
I have looked for it. I've contacted Schaumburg Library. I've looked a lot of places, and I find reports about it, but I haven't seen, and obviously the speech, and it all says that it took place, but I have not been able to find a photo from that day.
Well, we're gonna ask the photo angel to guide and direct.
Right.
That would be historic indeed. Let me acknowledge that Bishop Teresa Jefferson Snorton is watching. Always a delight to have you on, Bishop Snorton. And if there are any other bishops watching through the watch party or something, I know somebody will let me know and keep me posted. But Bishop James Walker is watching. Let me put this up. Bishop Coles appointed me to Trinity CME Church. That made my seminary experience at PST Phillips School of Theology possible. Thankful. And while John Thompson, who was my pastor for 10 years at Westside, I want to tell Oliver Dwayne Walker I saw a line. See, I told you in the beginning. I'm so grateful that they take time out of their very busy schedule to watch. But we all love Bishop Cole, so I'm not surprised, and I'm trying to put some of the messages up. Let me say hello to Sister Gloria Manson. Y'all remember Gloria from West Memphis?
Yeah.
Hey, Gloria.
Gloria stayed up all night long sending me pictures.
I'm sure she did.
Some of which I won't put up, Joe, just for
Thank you.
But Gloria, thank you so much, sweetheart. So now you moved to Atlanta. In 1974, let me say Atlanta. I said Atlanta like a native. And as a native, we don't say that. We don't pronounce that last T. Okay,
Atlanta.
It's Atlanta. All right, but I do know how to pronounce it. But you moved to Atlanta in 1974. What was that experience like for you all? Now, Ruby, by that time, tell us in terms of education. Were you in college, Jocelyn? And Joseph, tell us where you were and what you were doing during that time when you moved to Atlanta.
Yeah, so the first 3 years we were in Atlanta, I was finishing up at Oberlin College in Ohio. So I was there just in the summers and holidays. And then after I graduated, I did come home to Atlanta, stay for a year. And then I moved to DC, and I've been in DC since 1978.
Oh, wow. So you kind of a full circle, if you will.
That's right.
Yes, full circle moment for you. And what about you, Jocelyn?
So when we moved to Atlanta, I was 13, entering the 8th grade, and I went to Douglas High School. And
high school, the Astros.
That's right.
Yeah, went to Doug. And then from there, I went to college in Pennsylvania. I went to Swarthmore College in Pennsylvania, and then came back home. By that time, my parents both weren't well, and so I came home and decided to make roots here in Atlanta. So,
wonderful, wonderful. And Joseph?
Yeah, I was a fourth grader. So what I remember was that when we moved to Atlanta, it was the summer of '74. It was my parents in the front seat, the three of us in the back seat, along with that huge German Shepherd that you showed in the picture.
Yeah.
And I remember how terribly uncomfortable that was to move from from New York to Atlanta with this big dog in our lap, and we had to make several stops along the path. But anyway, I was a fourth grader. And so eventually I matriculated and ended up at Douglas High School as well. So most of my childhood was in Atlanta.
So much of your childhood was in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And now, were you at West Mitchell Street? Were you?
Yes. That was West Mitchell was my home church, and Holy Temple was Jocelyn's home church. So one thing that my father insisted on is that we do what was right for us individually.
Sure.
And so, he never wanted all of us to necessarily join the same church. So Jocelyn got what she needed at a Holy, and I was getting what I needed at a West Mitchell, and that's how we got down then, and that's kind of how we still do things now.
Well, I got to put this picture up, Joseph. I think you all were on your way to
my goodness.
Leadership training school.
Talk about a black man picture.
Oh my goodness, my goodness.
You have a members only jacket on.
Yeah.
Truly shameful.
That was a style.
That was a style. Yeah.
Let me also pause and acknowledge Bishop Paul A.G. Stewart. And Mrs. Stewart, who are watching, and to say hello to them, and so glad to have them on, and continue prayers to the Stewart family as they, take over the 9th Episcopal District, of course, with the passing of Bishop Best, and we send our love to Bishop Best's family, Mrs. Jacqueline Best, and we pray God's blessings to Bishop Stewart as he comes out of retirement, amen, to do that. And so you all enjoyed your time in Atlanta, but I got to ask Jocelyn, now how you ended up at Chi Temple? I love Chi Temple, and shout out.
It was Holy Temple. I went to Holy Temple.
Oh, you went to Holy?
Holy, yes. I was there, yes, with Reverend Long.
How'd you end up in
Curtis Long? Huh?
Curtis Long. Reverend
Curtis Long.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, listen, it was enough of you Coles to go around. So West Mitchell could not take a hold on to all of you. Sister Carolyn Brown from West Mitchell Street says hello. And good.
Hey, Carol.
Hey, Carolyn. Yeah.
One of the faithfuls at West Mitchell Street, and a very, very dear friend as well. So now I want to shift for a moment and talk about your dad and his ministry. And what was that moment like for you all? Well, how did you find out, first of all, that your dad was running for bishop or offering himself as a candidate for bishop? Do you remember that period of time? Interview?
I remember it vaguely, but I remember was having in the house boxes of pens and flyers and little buttons.
Yeah, campaign litter to all that.
Yeah, I think I guess I must have been around 11 at the time. So I just remember the literature and the excitement. I do remember that it was an exciting time that we had a lot of people calling the house and it was, I felt like he was running for president. I mean, I knew that. So it was an exciting time. Yeah.
Wow. And so he was elevated to the office in Philadelphia, 1974, and assigned, of course, to the 6th Episcopal District, or as Barbara Campbell says, the sensational 6th Episcopal District. I'm so glad that they sent him our way. Let me also acknowledge Bishop and Mrs. Marshall Gilmore watching
wow.
from all the Amen. Sister Joan, she said that they're watching, but having some difficulty sending a message. So this is the message that I need to convey. Bishop and Mrs. Marshall Gilmore are watching. His election to the episcopacy was due in large measure to the support of the two bishops being discussed. That's Bishop Gilmore has spoken. And anytime these bishops speaks now, I'm snatching their words and putting them in my book and giving them the credit for it. But Bishop Gilmore, we thank you, you and Mrs. Gilmore, always for watching and sharing. And my sister Joan, God bless you. That's my Facebook Messenger partner. And she has helped me tremendously in making contacts with a lot of folks that I need to contact with. But how was it that your dad's a bishop now? You know, and how was that? What do you remember going on in his life as a bishop? And particularly Jocelyn and Joseph, you all still in Atlanta. And so I know he was all, and let me just say this for a second. Let me put it up because, and I don't have all of them, but I was doing some research. And I mean, just every time you look up, Bishop Cole was in Atlanta Daily World. You remember Atlanta Daily World? Definitely. Did you get your baccalaureate?
That was my baccalaureate.
Right. So I have just Google gobs of these articles in my. Here's a couple of more. He's at Greater Hopewell Church. I pastored for 9 years and Holy Temple. You know, the life of a bishop. That's what.
That's what we. I remember him traveling. As soon as we moved to Atlanta, it was in the summer. He had to do conferences, and so they just started to travel, and it was a little hard getting used to when we were stuck in the house, getting used to Atlanta, being stuck in the house during that summer. But we did, and folks came over to the house and they brought food for us and lots of dinners, lots of caramel cakes. Joseph, I know how much you love the caramel. And just the district, they just loved us from the very beginning.
Oh, I know they did. I'm sure of that. And you know, the 6th Episcopal District, like most districts, love on the families of the bishops. You know, and we know that you all got that good old Southern hospitality.
We did.
No doubt. One of the things I remembered was he was very focused on trying to visit as many churches in Georgia as he could.
Yeah.
He wanted the people to see their bishop.
Yeah.
And so, like Jocelyn said, we did a lot of traveling throughout Georgia, specifically down in South Georgia. But he wanted to make sure that he was not just an Atlanta bishop. I remember that was one of the things I definitely remember. He said, I don't want to be an Atlanta bishop.
I love that. I love that. And that's a lot of traveling he had to do. And I know Mrs. Coles was right with him. Every stop.
Could be, yes.
Every stop. I'm so delighted to see the wonderful Mrs. Elizabeth Coleman, the wife of Bishop Caesar Coleman. She said hello to the Coles, longtime friends, Bishop Cole.
Definitely.
They were classmates. That's right. They were bishops together. Yes.
And I love Sister Coleman because she watches my church service every Sunday. I have Bishop's wife watching my church service every Sunday. Just sharing all kind of wonderful, encouraging comments. So I'm grateful. So grateful to her and glad to see her home.
Let me just say that that you know, as my mom's MS progressed, you know, she wasn't always able to get out like she wanted to. But one of the things that really kept her going was talking on the phone to Mrs. Coleman. Mrs. Gilmore had legendary conversations. You know, I would call her and she couldn't talk to me. I'm talking to Yvonne. You know, so May Lindsay, and she just loved being a bishop's wife, and she loved visiting with the various bishops' wives, you know, even on the phone when she couldn't always be there in person. But that was a great joy of her, is hanging out with the bishop's wife, Jean Cummings.
Yes.
Yeah. Great joy for her.
I'm sure it was, and it has been a joy getting to know many of these bishop wives, and I thought this was such a beautiful picture, and they always appear to be a sorority in themselves. Look, when you see them at the general conference, they're always together, the pastors' conference or the unity summit, you know, and they're all together, and I just love them, and they all have their wonderful unique personalities. And I know Sister Osha Hoyt is over there saying something she knows she shouldn't be in stitches. Amen.
Yeah.
And Mrs. Lindsay too. And Mrs. Lindsay was a great friend to the parent, to the family. Was a great family friend of ours. And so,
well, shout out to Mrs. Lindsay, one of my members, and continued prayers to the Lindsay family as well in the passing of Ricardo. So I want to share some pictures now. And you all sent so many wonderful. Did I tell you all how organized the Coles were? I got about 50 pictures and 10 emails, all captioned and all that kind of stuff. So I want to share a few photos. Here's a great picture of Bishop Stewart, Luther Stewart, out of Hopkinsville, Kentucky. Did you all know Bishop Stewart? But I think he died in 1962, if I recall correctly.
Well, I actually do. I remember him being at our house
in Cleveland.
Yeah, in Cleveland. So I definitely met him and remember him staying at the house with us.
At the house, yeah. Let me see. This is a picture of your dad. Can you tell us about this picture?
So when he was in Cleveland, he had a successful run for the Board of Education. You can see that he was the only Black person on the Board of Education then. And one of his key accomplishments was that he initiated a school breakfast snack program. One of the things that he learned in his research was that there were a lot of kids who were going hungry. And so he got the board to approve like milk and graham crackers or a breakfast snack so that kids wouldn't be hungry when they would have to learn. So that was something that he was very proud of, to start that program in Cleveland schools.
Wow, that is wonderful. I didn't know he was on the board as well. I think is Bishop Cole on this picture?
No, that's our grandfather. On the end, the tallest guy in there that's Joseph Cole Sr.
It is. Tell us about this picture.
So what's interesting is that as our dad was a senior civil rights activist in Harlem, our grandfather was a great civil rights activist, Joseph Sr. in Detroit. And he had a distinguished career. He was the first Black person to be named a delegate to the Michigan Democratic Party. He led the NAACP for many, many years. And this is a picture with, as you see, Robert Kennedy in the middle,
right.
LBJ on the other end, Judge Damon Keith, who's to the left of Robert Kennedy, was his great friend. And they had a meeting here in DC to talk about civil rights issues. And so he was a very, very well-known civil rights activist in Detroit. So it was sort of in the blood that my dad would become a civil rights activist. His dad was, and he was too. I guess he was kind of hardwired for it.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, that is incredible. I kept looking at the picture, and I'm saying, where's Bishop Cole? Maybe he changed physical appearance or something. I'm not recognizing him. But I'm going to go ahead and upload it since Ruby sent the picture. I figured it had some importance. I mean, really, it did. Let's look at this one with Bishop Coleman and your dad. And beautiful, beautiful picture.
That's a great picture.
Indeed. And here's another picture of the college bishop.
Yeah, that was his first picture after the election. That was that class's first picture with the College of Bishops.
With the College of Bishops, yes,
I
indeed.
see Bishop Button there.
Go ahead.
Bishop Button was the bishop in New York, so I remember him visiting the house a lot of times too.
Yes,
yep. Bishop Henry Button. Yep.
Yeah,
he was a nice man. I remember that.
Yeah. I tell you, in fact, I'm rereading Bishop Button's book, A Dreamer of Dreams. And it's such a wonderful, wonderful book, of Bishop Button. I learned so much about him as I have all of the bishops as well.
I remember that Bishop Button loved my mom's fried chicken. That's what I remember. And when he would come to the church, he would come home with us afterwards for dinner on Sunday.
I do remember him coming. Yeah,
I remember that. Yeah,
my mother's fried chicken.
Yeah.
Well, I have a fried chicken story. Well, my mother said growing up, my mother grew up Baptist and later became Methodist. But my grandmother could cook some good fried chicken, and my granddaddy, he would get upset because the preacher wanted to come to the house every Sunday. And the kids would be just kind of laughing on the inside because they knew their dad was not feeling the preacher at the table. Eating the wings.
Right.
Yeah, and
taking a big piece.
Right, all the good pieces. Yes, indeed. Joseph, what's the robe that you have, please? Tell us about
so this, I'm sure you have one too, Pastor, but the robe in the background was my father's. It was, kind of like his go-to robe. A lot of the more significant events.
Yeah.
He preferred to wear this robe. I think I have one other one upstairs, but I wanted to bring it down just for this special occasion.
I'm so glad you did.
So yeah, that was kind of his go-to robe when he really wanted to, when it was a bigger event and he wanted to look the part.
Yes.
And his godmother, who was a very significant part of his life, had that robe made. So I think it's really special because his godmother gave him that robe.
Yes, indeed. Phoebe Lightsey said one of my most memorable leadership training school experiences was in Washington, D.C. and taught by Mrs. Cole.
Wow.
She had a wonderful rapport with young folks, so kind. Well, she had a lot of experience with her 3 children at home. She was. I mean, I'm telling you, I must have been a teenager. I had to be at Westside. I'm ushering, and this was after the time that I think your father had a stroke, and he was back walking. But I noticed your dad he seemed to be fiercely independent. Okay, and didn't want anybody to help. And ushers can be real busy. They want to take him by the hand. I didn't take him by the hand, but somebody wanted to do that, and I noticed he did not want to do that, and he kind of moved it. And Mrs. Cole, in her very sweet, gentle way, she kind of turned to just make eye contact with the usher that he didn't mean anything. I got it. So every time Bishop Cole came to Westside, all I did was open the door. I opened the door because I was the head of the president of the usher board and all of that. I remember infamous. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, he was independent. Very.
Your mother. Pastor Nail said that your mom gave me a robe too.
Oh, okay. Yeah, one of his robes. He has several. Yeah.
One of the things that there you go.
Yeah.
He was he believed that women pastors were equal to male pastors, and that was something that's a really important part of his legacy, that he appointed women to churches.
Yes, he did.
As full pastors, not as the local preacher, not as an associate pastor, but as full pastors, and that's something that we're very proud of.
Well, we celebrated, and we had about 18 of those pioneering women pastors, presiding elders, and of course Bishop Snorton, Jefferson Snorton on, and Pastor Nellie Williams was on, and she just talked about her relationship with Bishop Coles, and
He was.
him taking a chance because somebody had to break the ceiling.
Yes,
in
yes.
Georgia, and Bishop,
And he was an advocate for them. He just made sure that if they were at a church, they could stay at the church, and if they needed to be promoted, that he gave them opportunities. And so he was just a great advocate for.
Yes,
Right. He wouldn't let the folks run them out of there.
yes.
Right.
Yes. Well, and unfortunately, sometimes when these messages come up, you get names, and sometimes you don't. Just want to say hello to my friends, the Coles. Bishop Coles was my father's Episcopal classmate, so this may be Dr. Coleman.
Yeah, so that might be Daryl.
Yeah.
Hey, Daryl.
Yeah, glad to have you on. Glad to have you on as well. Well, let's look at some more images that we have that we want to share. Do you remember the trip that he took to as a part of the delegation with Henry Kissinger?
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about that.
Right.
Yeah, I think that when we got the call, I think the phone rang and I think I answered it.
Okay.
And they said that it was from the president's office, President of the United States. And so I said, Daddy, somebody from the President of the United States office is on the phone for you. And he said, okay, just like
just another day.
Like he was expecting the call.
And so he hung up and he said that there was a gentleman there. I don't remember the gentleman's name, but somebody from Atlanta who was on President Carter's cabinet recommended him to be in the delegation to go to Golda Meir's funeral. And they sent him, maybe the next day, he got a Federal Express package with all of the travel materials and the whole package that he needed, and he was on his way. And yeah.
That's amazing. That is amazing. Let me see. I'll come back to that. Now, he went to China as well. And I don't know whether this picture is from that trip.
Yes.
It
yes.
is. Okay.
Yes.
What was the reason for him going to China? Do you recall?
That was another interesting, that was a package that came into the mail, and it was from Taiwan, and and it was very official looking. I distinctly remember it was a big package, and it said from the country of Taiwan, and I gave it. It was delivered to our house. It wasn't in the mail. It was delivered, and I gave it to my father, and he said, "Oh, they want me. They're asking a delegation of African American ministers to go to Taiwan and establish a relationship with the Republic of China, Taiwan." So that was a great trip for them, and they were there with ecumenical group, other Black pastors.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, what a rich journey he had as one of the bishops of our church. Let's see what else we have. Here's a article that appeared in Jet magazine. Black and white Methodist bishops meet in Georgia for the first time in 200 years, and here you have the Bishop Cannon of Atlanta. You have Bishop Talbot of the AME Church. The AMEs, all of these bishops are represented here, and our beloved Bishop Coles is in the midst, as he should be, representing the 6th Episcopal District. Here's another article: voter registration, KKK on the CME delegates agenda. Boy, that's quite an agenda, I tell you.
Quintessential Joe Coles.
Yeah, really.
That's right.
Yeah.
You know, that's who it is. And here he is, I think, with Bishop Tutu and with the late
Georgia Christian Council,
the Southern Christian Leadership Council, President Joseph Lowry, and they're holding hands together. I think this was in 1988, as we see, and Black churches call AIDS, drugs, abuse epidemic. I tell you, what a remarkable legacy. And let's see, this is a picture. Is your mother on? Yes, she's on.
Right in the middle.
The SCLC women.
SCLC women. She was a member.
I think that's Mrs. Evelyn Lowry in the far right corner. They became very good friends. Yep.
Wow, that's great. So let's look for a second. You sent some pictures from your father's time, and I think, is this Jamaica?
It is.
It is.
And he loved Jamaica, and Jamaica loved him.
Oh, I'm sure.
I think, and he loved bringing folks down to the annual conferences with him. That was a trip that he and my mom really looked forward to. They had such a good time. You know, they talked about how wonderful the folks were there, and they just really, really enjoyed Jamaica. I'll tell you one story that is really meaningful. Soon after there's one of his sons in Christ.
Yeah, Bishop Thomas Brown. Yeah. Yes, indeed.
But an important Jamaica story is that after he had established a relationship with them, he asked them, what could he do? What could the CME Church do to help them? What did they want?
Right.
And they said they wanted a preschool. They called it a basic school.
Okay.
And so he said, okay, we can do that. We're going to help you set up a basic school. And then he said, now I want you to think very carefully about what you want to name this basic school. Is there a Jamaican hero, or is there someone you know that the children will look up to? And the people said, well, we want to name it the Joseph C. Coles Basic School. And he said, no, don't name it after me. I want you to name it after someone here in Jamaica. And they insisted on naming it the Joseph C. Coles Basic School, and it still exists to this day. And the reason why that story is so significant, that he allowed them to do that, is because he was very, very clear that he never wanted anything named after him. Right?
Really?
He never, he was very serious about that.
Yes.
There were a number of churches that approached him, especially new churches that approached him about being called Coles Chapel, and he always said no, but he did allow the Jamaicans to name a preschool after him. But there are no churches named after him. Go ahead, Joseph. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Pastor, he'd give people the same look that you mentioned. The usher guy.
Yeah.
He gave them that same look when it came to, are you gonna name? We want to name something after you. He'd get that same look in his eye.
Just
that was nothing that he was ever interested in.
Oh wow, that is amazing. That is amazing. Well, let's see what we have here. We have him and Bishop Bass together. Somewhere,
in Jamaica.
Oh, was this in Jamaica? Okay, as well.
My father was never louder than when he was talking to Richard Bass. He was loud and laughing and just, oh my goodness, they would have such a good time together.
Oh wow, that is wonderful. I tell you. And now, where is this? Is this in
Jamaica? That's in the 10th district. That's Africa.
Oh, that's Africa. Yeah, right.
Oh, that's in Africa. Okay.
Yeah.
That is incredible. And then we have this one of three of the giants in the CME Church, Dr. Mance Jackson. I used to ride to leadership training school with Dr. Jackson and his son. And then we have Reverend Jerry Poole, who was my first presiding elder. When I was, when I first got my first church in 1996. And of course, his wife, Mrs. Dr. Ann Dobson, was the wonderful musician at Trinity for the 7 years that I was there. And her dad was, of course, Pastor Wes Mitchell as well. Great ties. And again, go ahead, sweetheart.
I was just going to say, again, shout out to the Mance Jackson family, to Joy Jackson.
Absolutely.
Let me prayers and prayers too.
Yeah, those are two peas in a pod right there.
Definitely.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, they had a great friendship over the years. Great
Yeah.
friendship. Yeah.
And it's just a delight. You all are still in touch, and I think have an occasional meal or something. She told me.
Yeah,
we spent a lot of holidays.
Every Christmas. Yeah,
the Jacksons, the Williams family. So
Williams family.
Oh yeah.
Yes, we spent a lot of holidays because we're all around the same age, and so we spent a lot of time together.
Yes.
And I think Jocelyn, going back to Reverend Poole and his family, Jocelyn, I remember babysat the Poole kids, Erica, girl.
Wow. Yeah. So tell us. Let's shift for a moment. Talk about your dad's illness. When did your dad become sick, and how were you all able? I mean, he had great resilience, but tell us about that time in your life with your dad's illness, please.
It was October '81 when he suffered a stroke. That picture's from a couple of years later, but it was '81, and it just so happened that the same week that he had his stroke, my mother was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. So she was diagnosed a couple of days earlier, and we're still kind of dealing with that as a family. What is this multiple sclerosis? What does it mean? And shortly thereafter, literally a few days later, my father had suffered a stroke. So, one quick story is the 6th Episcopal District just did a remarkable job.
Yes.
At that time, Jocelyn was out of the house, Ruby was out of the house, I was still in high school, and the pastors would come and they would literally pick my father up and put him in bed. They would dress him in the mornings. They would take him to rehab. I mean, they had a schedule where they would come to the house and they took care of their bishop. Yes. And it was just unbelievable to see.
And they did that over the years, if he had a setback over the years, they would just be there and they would just take care of him and come in and put his pajamas on. And
Reverend Wolford would cut his hair. I mean, it was just every need that he had, they took care of. And they said, Sister Coles, we got him. And they would just take care of him.
I tell you, and can't nobody cut hair like presiding Wow. And I know that to be the case because I tell you, every time if we have a pastor, if we have a planning meeting for the Atlanta Road District where presiding Elder Woodfork is, if he doesn't mention Bishop Cole's name once, he mentions it 10 times. And Bishop Cole said, this, that, and the other. I mean, he can remember just these quips and quotes off of the top of his head from Bishop Cole. So he
was a great son. He was a great son. Yeah, he was a great son.
Yeah, and also, I can imagine. So you're dealing with both of your parents. And taking care of them. I remember my pastor then, Reverend Jerome Price. You remember Reverend Price?
Oh, absolutely. Are you kidding me?
Reverend Price loved him some Bishop Cole.
Yeah.
And Bishop Cole loved him some Reverend Price.
It was beautiful.
Absolutely.
Now, I can say this now, but when we were young preachers, everybody said Reverend Price trying to run the 6th Episcopal District now.
Reverend Price and Reverend Thomas Brown pretty much lived at the house.
Well, they did. They weren't running, but they were taking good care of what Bishop Cole had entrusted them with. And I observed that because I was very close to Reverend Price, and we would have meetings with him and all, and I knew he would have to leave and go to the Cole's house, or he had to do something, and he was the dean of the leadership training school, and Bishop Cole's trusted him dearly as well. And so that's amazing, and that's the way it should be, that the pastors would come. They take care of Bishop and your mother. Let me share.
One quick thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
And Mrs. Price and my mother also became very, very close.
Yes.
Very close. So,
and I tell you, couldn't nobody sing like Sister Pam Price.
Oh, Pam Price could sing.
you don't have to tell me anything about that. You don't have to tell me nothing about
one of her former choir members. I mean, I tell you, she has a voice. During those West Side days. Let's see. Let me put up a few more pictures here. This is your mom and dad. I guess it's on a vacation.
Yeah. One of my mother's dreams was to go to Hawaii for vacation, and they finally got there. And you can see how happy they were that they finally got to Hawaii for vacation.
Yep.
That is nice.
That's a big grin. Yep. That's one of my favorite pictures.
One of your favorites, yes, indeed. I tell you. Let me put this one up as well. Just a second. Find it. Got so many wonderful pictures to share with you. And okay, this is the New York delegation. I think that's what I saw somewhere.
No, that is actually full circle St. John CME Church.
Oh, okay.
So this is my dad's last public appearance before he died. Okay. St. John's invited him back for, I believe it was their 120th anniversary celebration, and honored them, and he died just weeks after that. And you see Bishop and Mrs. Broomfield were there. And, you know, Reverend Weldon Thomas, Mrs. Thomas there on the left, and they invited them, and it was such an honor, but he was so happy. And of course, none of us knew this would be his final public appearance, but it's just fitting that that final appearance was St. John's, because that was his home church, and that's where it all started for him.
That is fantastic. Beautiful picture. Beautiful picture as well. And this is one that I found in the ITC archive.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
John Thompson.
John Thompson,
And Reverend Thompson has been watching tonight, so hello to Reverend Thompson,
hello.
my pastor for 10 years. Thompson, and here you have.
Yeah, we remember him well.
I know you do. I know, and Bishop Cole and Bishop Peter Randolph Shy. I remember Bishop Shy.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah. We remember.
You remember Bishop Shy? Yeah.
I can never get them to call me Skip. They always call me Skippy. I was Mrs. Shy's Skippy and Bishop Shy's Skippy. I used to say Bishop Shy at a prayer meeting. You know,
Mrs. Shy.
You are what the bishops call you, huh?
Mrs. Shy was proud, AKA. And when we moved into the Episcopal residence, there was pink and green everywhere.
I'm sure of that. I'm sure of that. Here's a picture of your dad receiving an honorary degree from ITC. From then Dean Larkin.
I remember Dean Larkin.
Yes, indeed.
Education was a major part of his. Education was a major part of his legacy with us. He stressed education, and he wanted all of his ministers, his pastors, to be educated, and it was just really important for education. Was just really important for him.
Yes, indeed, and for me, you know, as I've been working on my book and all, that has just been the connecting thing throughout, you know, that since Bishop Miles declared that we got to educate our preachers, you know, and raise the level up. This church has always emphasized education and educating its preachers and creating these wonderful schools and so forth. So we're going to look at a few family pictures now. Your mother, and who was that with her? Is that a sister?
Yeah, that's her sister Vivian, who's great member of Ebenezer CME Church. I hope she's watching. And one of the things that we were so grateful for was that after our father died, Aunt Vivian became her road dog, right? They would go to the connectional meetings together, and and hang out. And that was, so she would have somebody in the room with her to help her get dressed and all. But our Aunt Vivian was there on the case. They are close in age as sisters. Yeah.
That is wonderful. Well, now let's look at a few wedding pictures here.
Yeah, he officiated at my wedding, and did our vows.
Oh, how wonderful!
Yeah,
that's another one.
Yeah, here we are.
I had hair. And that's obviously my wedding. My wife and I recently celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary a couple of months ago. And you obviously recognize the church, Pastor.
I recognize the church, and I recognize the robe. And
that's right, that is the robe.
That's the robe. And I have more wedding pictures. I tell you, Gloria Manson, as we speak, Gloria is still sending me pictures. She is still sending me pictures. I'm so appreciative. It's my fault. She said I should have told her earlier. She'd have had them all loaded up, So, thank you, dear. I appreciate that so much. Let me put this one up of some of the grandchildren. Tell us who they are.
So the oldest grandchild is David Jr. in the gold shirt behind Grandmommy. They all called her Grandmommy. Okay. And then there's Janice behind Grandmommy. Janet, for those who may remember my mother's pound cake, which she was also famous for her pound cake, Janice does the best job of all of us making Grandmommy's pound cake. The young man in the red shirt is Joseph the Fourth, and Joseph is now a junior up in college up in Boston. And in Grandmommy's lap is Jonathan. He's the youngest. Aunt Vivian calls Jonathan Little Geneva because they favor a lot. And Jonathan has his grandmother's big heart, and he's going to be a special kid.
That's nice. And here's another one here.
That's my family with Junior and Janice.
Beautiful. Yeah. And the next time your daughter makes pound cake and we're able to be in each other's presence to greet each other, I'm there. I don't crash parties. I don't go where I'm not invited, but I will show up just being in the neighborhood. So we got a few more pictures, and then you all have been so kind and generous. And as I said earlier, that we're going to be with the Cummings family on next Sunday. So we had a little time to go over, and I'm glad that we've been able to take our time and to share. But I want to put up a few pictures of the College of Bishops at various different years, and as the bishops, the bench changes, amen, and new bishops are elected. It is just great to see these wonderful pictures. This was over at Phillips School of Theology.
Yeah.
Bishop Lindsay. And,
Bishop Lindsay, Bishop Button.
Bishop Graves.
Bishop Graves,
Just the giants amongst us, I tell you. And this was a banquet. I think this was a Phillips School of Theology banquet. And Bishop Thomas Brown was I believe. And I see your mom and dad down.
Pastor, can I tell you a quick story, please?
Yes.
So my father actually came to visit my wife and I on Thanksgiving in 1995, and that's when, unfortunately, he passed. He was in the hospital for a couple of days up in New Jersey. This was at the time we were living in New Jersey. He was up in the hospital, and everybody in 6th District was calling, how's Bishop Coles doing? We're worried about him. Everyone was praying for him. I remember vividly one call that my mother took in the hospital, and I heard her say, "Thomas, don't you come up here." And so she hung up, and she said, Thomas Brown really wants to come up here, and I told him don't come. And so, I think all of us were like, why did you tell him not to come? And so literally the next day, we were all in the hospital trying, hoping and praying that everything would work out with my father.
Yeah.
And then come busting through the doors was Thomas Brown.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah. And it felt like it felt right.
Yeah.
It felt right.
Yeah.
He was been there with us.
It felt like he needed to be that. Talking about full circle, right? At that time, the nurses were calling him Joe. No one was calling him Bishop.
Right.
And it was fine because obviously he grew up Joe. But for me, it felt like his life was also Bishop, right? And so when Reverend Brown came up there and walked through those hospital doors, it just felt right, and it felt like this is it, right? And I remember that story, and I'll always remember that time.
It doesn't
surprise. Right there.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise. And Bishop Lakey often talks about how Bishop Brown, then Reverend Brown, was his pastor. You know, and Bishop Brown is that kind, and so I'm grateful to have Bishop Thomas. And here's another picture of them, I think, together. Not sure what the event is. I think Gloria may have shared this one with me.
That might be his I think that might be his retirement program.
Okay.
It looks like it. Yeah.
Yep. And here he is at Westminster Street for some event as well, and some event for.
Yep, there's Barbara Manson. Yep.
Barbara had her camera. Yes.
That's President Julia Scott. Yeah.
Yes, it is. It is. Yes. Julia Scott, and here's another one as well. And I'm not sure what the event is, but I do see your mother. And then my last one, let me just go back and double check. Well, let me put this up too, because I found this in the old Christian Index. Wow. Why I entered the seminary.
Wow.
And, this was a sort of a brief article and a picture of your dad, him talking about why he entered a seminary.
Oh, that's wonderful. We don't have that.
But you know,
send that over.
You got it. Absolutely. You got it. And anything else that I have, but I just so appreciate you all. And Joseph, since you were the first one that I reached out. Well, actually, I reached out to Jocelyn, I think. First. And then Joseph called me. And
I get the tough task in this family, Pastor.
You got the assignment.
You got the assignment.
Yes, and then Boss Ruby made it happen. Yes. I can't tell y'all what happened before the show started, but Ruby was on top of it.
She was.
Yeah,
I take my big sister role very seriously.
You do, and I'm so grateful. And this is for me, and all you are still on. Thanks for hanging in there. This is what has been a blessing to me with this opportunity to share, is that we get to have these conversations with people who have been out of sight for a while, but not out of our mind, our spirit. And we get to have these intimate conversations with you. And I'm so grateful. Joe, you gonna kill me for this, but I'm gonna put it up anyway. Look at this one.
Oh my goodness.
That's at Payne College.
Yes.
Leadership Training School.
Yep.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
He was daddy, right? I mean, like Ruby said, he was daddy. And we have fun together. I was his only son. Yeah. And he was my father, and we had a good time together, telling jokes, telling bad jokes to each other. And I tried to learn from him as a leader. I remember challenging some things and saying, Joseph, you can't manage the church like you manage corporate America. But we had a great relationship, and I miss and love him dearly.
I know you. I know all of you do. Well, as we prepare to close, I want each of you just to share one final thought. What is it we should remember as the CME Church is celebrating its 150th anniversary? And you've shared so much already with us. But what should we remember your father for as it relates to our church? And I'll give each one of you an opportunity to share.
Well, I'll start. The thing that I would like folks to remember, and that I'm really, really proud of, was his social justice ministry. You know, he initiated the Board of Social Concerns, was his first chair. And, you know, I feel like he represented the CME Church extremely well, both in the U.S. around civil rights, but also internationally as well. And so it's the social justice ministry that I think has been a really strong legacy of his.
Up here. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
And I think it's also his love of the church. He loved the CME Church. He did. He loved the CME Church. He loved the church, and he instilled in us and his ministers just a love for the community, and the church, and all that it represents. And I'm active in the church. My family's active, and I just he just loved the church, and he instilled that in us. And so I'm so grateful to him for that.
Wow, thank you.
I'll say, you know, I think that it was the love of my parents that, you know, for us, right? It's their children, it's their grandchildren, it's the sons of his ministry. It's, you know, the love that they share throughout the CME Church. Had to give a shout out to Bishop Reddick, who, you know, who also stayed on the phone with my mother after my father died, and showed so much love, and so it was just I guess the legacy is one of love and happiness and family and the relationship with God. He absolutely loved the CME Church, no doubt about it, but he was always preaching and always talking about build a relationship with God.
Yeah.
Above all else, build a relationship with God.
And I'd like to tell one more quick story about my mom. The day before my mom went to the hospital when she was really, really sick, she signed a Bible for Jonathan, my nephew Joseph's youngest son, her youngest grandchild. And you know, her hand was shaking and she could barely do it, but she signed that Bible because she wanted to have Jonathan have a Bible from her. And a few days later, she was gone.
Wow.
So that's their legacy, both of them, right? That's both of them. So to make sure that we're strong in the faith, and strong in our faith walk. And so that last story I just feel like is very emblematic of who she was, but who they were.
Who they were together. Yeah. Beautiful stories. Reverend Thompson he says his wife wants to make sure everyone knows.
I remember, yes.
I do remember married them. Married his. I want to close with a couple of quotes, very briefly, that are going to appear in my book. I'm putting this up for you, Joan. She always chides me when I say, did I tell you I'm writing a book? In our own words, 150 years of wisdom from the bishops of the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church. And when I put it up, Joan said, yeah, you've already told us you're doing the book, but she has been most helpful. But I want to share a couple of quotes from your dad that will be in the book. He said, and this is in 1977, how can a progressive and enlightened denomination composed primarily of Black people be without such a department as we continue our struggle for liberation? Someone will ask, where's the money for it? It's in the CME Church. The church's financial potential has yet to be developed, and it can be developed when we give the people something worthy of their financial support. Here's another quote. He says, women are old when they stop looking good. Men are old when they stop looking. Bishop Marshall Gilmore quoted late Bishop Joseph Coles, who was told by an elderly female parishioner, "At this stage of my life, I do not need to keep the faith. I need a faith that will keep me." Bishop Cole. Yeah. And so this is the wisdom of the ages. The wisdom, 150 years of wisdom in our church. That'll be in my book out in December.
I'm sorry, Pastor. When did you say the book was coming out?
December. If I do all my deadlines, but I have been blown away by the wisdom of our Episcopal leaders and things that they have said that I want everybody to have as a part of the 150th anniversary. And certainly Bishop Cole, I'm still taking quotes and receiving quotes, so please share if you have any. But I'm so grateful to you, Ruby and Jocelyn and Joseph. You have blessed us this evening tremendously. Thank you for sharing your mother and father for so many years, and thank you for sharing these wonderful memories with us and these great images. And we just continue to pray God's blessings over you. Now, last question: where are your parents? Where's their final resting place? Are they in Atlanta?
No, my mom's family has a family cemetery on family property in South Boston, Virginia, and they're both there.
A couple of miles from Ebenezer.
Okay, yep. That makes sense. Well, yeah. I know where I'll stop whenever I'm in Boston. Yeah, I know, to go in to pay my respect. Well,
and please, can you please share our regards to Gene Cummings next week? Just
yes.
He was a great friend of my mom, and can you just share our greetings from us to her?
I most certainly will. I'm looking forward to next week a conversation with the Cummings family on Bishop James Cummings, the 40th bishop of the CME Church. But today, brothers and sisters, we have been blessed with the triumphant trio of Ruby, Jocelyn, and Joseph Coles III. And this concludes and ends this edition of CME 150. Facebook Live conversation. Those of you, do as Dr. Duhart has said now. Make sure by tomorrow you are registered for the General Connectional meeting on Friday. Tomorrow is the deadline. I'm registered, looking forward to being a part of it on Zoom. And I want to end this conversation with a wonderful musical treat, which was shared to me by one of my cousins. It is Total Praise, done with cellos. We do not own the rights to this music. Facebook, before you take it down. YouTube, before you take it down. But I do want to share. God bless you all, and I look forward to being in touch with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.